Hey, we got an exciting video for you today. We got Major Retired Michael Daves. This man went from infantry to signal to civil affairs. Went from E1 all the way up to Major 04. This man has an amazing story of grit, resilience, and leadership. Man, I don't want y'all to miss this. And if you love our content, please like, comment, and subscribe. Hit that notification bell so you never miss a Swaggy Vet video. Cue the intro.
Now on the set of the Swaggy Vet show, we do it for the sisters and bros from coast to coast. A place where it's safe to go to make sure that a soldier's stories are told. All around the globe, going worldwide, representing military pride. Make sure you like, comment, and subscribe.
You should already be at the position of a 10 for them boys when they come out, the original first Swaggy veteran. And then you got the boy Big Pen. Hey man, salute me or shoot me. And if you ain't no vet, you better not talk like one.
Boom. Here we go. Boom. What's up, everybody? Welcome to the Swaggy Vet Podcast. I'm your host, Big Pen. I got my co-host and my best friend here with me, first Swaggy Veteran. What's up, my man?
What's going on, Big Pen? What's going on, Swaggy Vets, our friends and family? How y'all doing out there?
Man, we got an amazing guest today. Today is joining us is a 26-year U.S. Army veteran with experience across infantry, signal, and civil affairs. He led missions in Africa and the Middle East, working at the intersections of leadership, diplomacy, and stability operations. He brings us a powerful perspective on service, resilience, and life after the uniform. Michael Daves, welcome to the show, brother.
Yeah. Thank you. Big honor to be here today. I don't know whose that bio is from, but it sounds pretty good.
It briefs well, huh?
Yeah. No,
Hey.
big honor to be here.
Yes, sir. Hey, now, before we get into it, I know, and I really want to know this, we kind of touched on it before now. You're a Florida boy, and your house is kind of divided. You got a kid that goes to University of Florida and Florida State University. How does that work?
Yeah. So actually, one of my daughters just graduated University of Florida last year. So we were strong
Yep.
on Gators. And then one semester ago, my youngest daughter just started at FSU.
Mm-hmm.
So so we're house divided, definitely. We actually went to the Florida State University of Florida football game like last month. And
Oh yeah.
so one daughter was very happy, and the whole rest of us were not happy because FSU had a great season if they played in football. If they played a difficult team or a ranked team, then they beat them. They shut them down. It was a great season. Anybody that they played that was a mediocre team or a weak team, FSU lost to. So I don't know what happened this year, but anyway, it was a great time, and we had a lot of fun.
Absolutely, man. So let's talk about growing up in Florida, man. You grew up, near the beach.
Yeah, I grew up in a small, tiny beach town called Crystal River, Florida. That's about 45 minutes north of Tampa. So right on the Gulf Coast. So we had a river there, a river with a beach, and then the Gulf Beach. Really small town environment growing up. I take myself pretty seriously, I'll just say in general. So I try to use comedy to lighten it up some because I get so serious. And that's one thing I loved. We'll get into this later on. But that's one thing I loved about John Jones. One, he's in my first special operations unit, like complete professional, the pinnacle of those, senior non-commissioned officers, but also, just making everything fun and lively and, adding that comedy to the situation was great. But anyway, so I do take myself kind of too seriously, probably most of the time. So I really try to interject some comedy here and there to keep myself a little bit more grounded. So I grew up in Central Florida, right there on the Gulf Coast, as a poor white child. I had two sisters for siblings. My mother and father both worked. I was really the latchkey kid when I grew up. It was both parents were at work, and you came home from school, got dropped off on the school bus, and you were just taking care of yourself, until your parents got home. So that was really my upbringing. And from that, we spent the summers riding bicycles around, going to the beach, and that was really the small town, I guess, life that I grew up with. Um, so when I was time to graduate high school, one, I think, from my father, I really learned that, kind of a strong work ethic, from my childhood, always seeing both my parents working, and, just really the integrity and the strong work ethic that my father had, and he kind of um, instilled in me. So I think that was probably the biggest advantage of where and when I grew up, that helped me later on in my Army career. But once I was coming to the end of graduating high school, and then we started looking at, what to do next. There wasn't a lot of opportunities in the town that I was at, and my parents came from a different generation to where education, they came from the generation that you could start a job at a company, you could work 25 years and end up being the CEO of the company later on, so education was nice if you had it, but it wasn't by any means like a necessity, I think, for a career or for life. So as I was graduating high school, I I had a strong family service in the military. My father was in the Navy, was in during Vietnam era and some of the other events of that time. My grandfather was in the Army, served in World War II, actually a Purple Heart recipient during World War II. And I had a lot of other uncles and other family members that had that strong military service. So for me, graduating high school, the service looked attractive. My parents really didn't, press education as much as probably work ethic. And really, I was just looking for adventure. And so I started, the recruiters came into school and started talking to us. I started reaching out and just seeing what was available. And I was very interested in the Marine Corps and the Army, but I landed on the Army just for one reason and one reason only. They both offered adventure. Both offered, travel, see the world. And one of them offered sign on cash bonus, and that was the Army. So again, coming from a small town, probably, lower middle class to probably lower middle class family, that economic incentive along with adventure and a career, I think, really sparked interest in me. So that's what led me to the Army.
So your dad, so your grandfather and your dad served. So did you
Yeah.
kind of feel like, hey, this is my purpose. This is what I need to do?
Yeah, I really felt drawn toward the military. Again, at the time, I wasn't as interested in college. I mean, even nowadays, I think it's not for everybody. My kids, most of my kids have attended college, and I've attended myself now, throughout that time. But again, I think it's a path, but not the path. So at that time, really, I think military service was kind of the next logical step for me after high school.
Yeah, because nowadays, I see like these electricians, HVAC, all these blue collar jobs, they're winning right now.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
And all,
So
all those careers that can't be replaced by AI,
absolutely, man.
right?
So that so the service stopped being an idea and became a decision like right after high school?
Yes.
Okay.
Yep. So I went immediately after high school. Toward the end of that summer after high school, I went into basic training. And I think, basic training, coming from small town kid, going to basic training, especially infantry basic training, was quite a culture shock. But when you're there, I think, like many people, I just took it, one day at a time. I didn't quit today. I saw people quit, but I didn't quit today. So let me learn what I have to learn. And something my father, um, one of the sayings my father had was, if there's a will, there's a way. And so anytime there would be a challenge, whatever, our car broke down or something or whatever it was in my childhood, that's one of the sayings that I always recalled my father is, there's a will, there's a way. So that means, whatever happened, whatever the challenge is, there's a way through it. And, as long as you're committed to doing it, then, you're going to find the solution. So that stuck with me, I think, from my childhood. And I brought that with me to the military. I mean, starting out with basic training, because young, skinny, white kid in basic training, and the big culture shock, the drill sergeant, what they call it, the shark attack, the first day where you're getting off the bus and all these drill sergeants are just yelling, screaming, cussing, and yeah, you realize that you're in a whole new environment. But that really kind of kept me through, and kept me advancing through it, I guess.
Especially infantry basic training, because that's like the tip of the spear when it comes to discipline.
It was it was definitely a new experience. I don't know what it is like nowadays, but back then it was, and especially like I said, especially if you're if you're older now and you go through basic, it's probably not. I mean, it's probably a shock, but it's probably not as much of a shock. But going through infantry basic back at that time, it was definitely it was definitely some induced stress in the environment, which ended up making you learn a lot more, assimilate a lot more information in a lot shorter period of time with applied stress. So, but it was a good experience overall, especially looking back on it. And in the middle of it, you're learning also some of the Army isms, like embrace the suck. But after you get through it, it's you have that sense of accomplishment and all that you learned going through it.
So, Mike, what do you think that the Army was going to give you that school wouldn't?
Really, I mean, honestly, I was a naive young kid at the time, so I thought I thought it was going to give me a career. So I'm going to have a career. I'm going to learn something. I heard stories growing up with my father about, traveling the world. My father was in the Navy. At one point he was on an aircraft carrier. So, he would just tell stories about all these ports across the globe that he visited here, this country, this country. So I was very adventurous and curious, young adult. And so having an opportunity to see the world and see some of these different locations and the adventure of that was really high on my, I guess, priorities at that time for a young adult.
So for you, you was more chasing adventure than you were direction when you joined the military?
Yeah, I think so. And to be, like I said, it was also an economic decision. I came from a poor family. We never had a brand new car the entire time I was growing up. We always had used cars, which there's nothing wrong with that. But I'm just saying that was the reality. And I grew up probably as a poor kid, but I grew up normal. I had a happy childhood. We probably did a lot of things back then that you can't do nowadays. probably get in trouble for nowadays. But so when I was also being offered a pretty sizable cash bonus at the time, and the adventure and travel, then yeah, it was done. It was a set deal.
What was the first thing you bought with that bonus?
The first thing I bought with that bonus was a stereo system with big speakers, everything.
What'd you put in the tape deck? I know you didn't. You had a CD player or tape deck?
It had a tape deck, it had a record player, it had a CD player, it had it all. But I grew up in Central Florida, so probably typical to a lot of people at that time, or probably even nowadays, that grew up in Central Florida. The two musics that we really listened to was rap and rock. I mean, we grew up on rap and rock. So, and I think Big Pen, I'm curious because Big Pen grew up, I think, not too far from where I did in Central Florida also.
I was about 45 minutes to an hour from you. Yeah, you can catch me listening to some Dr. Dre, or you can catch me listening to some
Luke,
alternative music. Yeah,
Luke,
Luke,
and two live crew.
Two Live Crew.
Yeah, yeah.
Yep. You catch me listening to some Metallica. Yeah.
Metallica.
Oh
Yep.
yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, Metallica.
Yeah. I
So
even
what
got
was
my
it?
son listening to Metallica.
Nice.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
what was it like when you? So what was your first infantry unit? Because I take it you did go to airborne school there,
So I didn't
right
I
through.
went to airborne school later on actually. So when I went to the infantry, my first unit was in Germany. So I
Mm.
boarded the plane. Sorry, my dog in the background here.
He, uh, the dog said he wants some attention.
Yeah, somebody's at the door. Okay, so yeah, my first unit was in Germany. I was in Hohenfels, Germany at they were standing up, or maybe they just stood up the National Training Center over there. So my first role in infantry was just an infantryman. Um, we did like light infantry tactics, and then we also did mechanized tactics at the training center there. So every army unit and other units, even Spanish and German units that were in Germany, would come there for their like 45 days or 30, 45 days in the field. And that was in Hohenfels in the box. So we refined our infantry skills
Mm.
through a lot of time in the field. But it was good. I had some great teammates when I first arrived to the unit. First time I took an airplane trip. First time I flew out of the country. I arrived in Germany. Made it to my first unit. Went to meet the first infantry squad, and thank God in my first squad and platoon there was probably at least 10 people from Florida. So I got the Florida welcome from them, thank God. This skinny white kid from Central Florida walked in the door. The very first thing the that I heard was, "Oh, we've got a new 240 Bravo gunner." I was like, what?" So that's for those that are watching. That probably most people know for this, but that's the bigger hand operated machine gun, which is
It's
not
called
light to carry
the
around.
AKA, what is it? The pig, is it?
Yeah, the
Per, per,
hog. Yeah,
the hog or the pig?
the pig,
We call it
the pig was M60.
the MC. Well, we call that for the
that was it.
240
Yeah,
too.
yeah. It's
The
it's the same.
M60
It's the
yeah,
same gun basically.
Yeah.
M60 and
the
240.
preferred infantry gun.
Yeah.
That's what we called it.
This
So
So Mike, what did the infantry teach you, and why the transition from it?
um, the infantry really taught me, well, one, self-discipline first. Taught me self-discipline. Doing the right thing. Teach you like what task and you're supposed to be doing, and even when somebody's not watching you, making sure you're doing the tasks that you're supposed to be doing. So a lot of personal discipline, which I think for everybody is, I mean, it sets you up for goal accomplishment later on. So it taught me that. It taught me physical fitness. When I was in high school, I didn't play on any sports teams at high school, but I played on other league teams. I played on soccer. I tried football for 1 year, but a skinny little kid trying to be a right tackle and even little league football did not work out to my advantage. So I stuck with soccer for a while, and then but when I went into the military and with all the physical fitness training, and then I started to work out with weights later on. So I went from skinny to I think in a 6 month period, once I finally started working out with weights in the military, I probably gained 25 or 30 pounds in like 6 months. so it finally some athletics started to catch up with me. But yeah, I think that's the overall lessons that I really learned, is that personal discipline in the military, which really leads out to long-term goal accomplishment, and really the camaraderie, the tight relations, especially my first unit being outside the country, so like in an unfamiliar environment. Although Europe is very similar to the United States, but everybody's speaking a different language, and knowing all the especially all your platoon members, but especially those members that are from like we were from Florida, they took me under their wing, and we're going to show you the way here. And so just so many great guys that and camaraderie there.
Man, you bring back memories talking about Hohenfels, man. I remember I went to Hohenfels. I was there in December. It was so cold. And being from Florida, I wasn't used to that type of cold.
That was my introduction to cold yeah, myself. So I had seen snow once when I was a young child for a very small period of time, and then growing up in Florida, so it's all sunny Christmases and everything like we just experienced here. Again, I'm in Tampa, Florida right now. So when I was out there in Hohenfels, we went out. So we were kind of getting spoiled a little bit. So we're like, okay, we're going out to the field so much. There's a unit coming in. We've got to set up a defense. We're going to defend against them. So we're going to be out there for 18 hours. It's like, okay, good. There's like, we're getting trucked out there. You don't even have to walk. So pack all your bags, pack all your snivel gear, all your cold weather gear in the bags, pack all your what they call the snacks, all the licky chewies.
Pokey bait.
Yeah, all the pokey bait. So we packed them up, packed our rucksacks like full and our extra duffels. We got on the truck, we started heading out, and the snow was just coming down. It had already been coming down that day, but the plan was, mission was already set. So we were up, dark 100 in the morning, heading out on the trucks. We got halfway out to the box, and the deuce and a halves and 5 tons that we're riding on the back on, they're sliding because the roads are just frozen. So they're sliding off the side, and it's some terrain out there. So they called. It's like, okay, all the roads are black. Everybody's got to dismount out of the vehicles. We're like, okay. They're like, okay, get all those rucksacks on. Get your extra bag on top of your rucksack.
Oh man.
And let's start walking. So we walked. We got trucked out the first half. Roads went black. The base was shut down. So we humped out the other half of the way in like probably knee-deep snow. So for a Florida boy, that was a rude awakening to the winter. So apparently blizzard had rolled in. So our 18-hour defense ended up, we went in, we set up the defense. We had somebody medevac. As soon as we ended the road march to the defensive placement, we had somebody medevaced out already for frostbite. So another guy that happened to be from Florida also. So anyway, that was my acquisition into the winter life.
Oh man. So at that point, so after that, you spent, a number of years in the infantry world, and then what made you decide to switch over to Signal?
Yeah. So again, I reflect back on, I had a pretty unconventional path. So after, I'll get to another story here, but I went in 4 years into the infantry, and then I got out. I had a gap of service. I did some job exploration for a while. I did some college, and then I ultimately went back into the military and re-enlisted into Signal at that time. But so my first assignment, I was in Germany. Then I came back. I was in 101st at Fort Campbell, Kentucky, for my second military assignment for infantry as an 11 Bravo. When I came to 101st, we did a lot of great training there. And then we did, toward the end of my 4-year assignment, we did a 6-month deployment to Egypt as part of the MFO, the Multinational Force and Observers. So you're basically, your infantry squad is deployed out to remote sites in the Sinai Desert, and you're just monitoring military equipment from Israel or Egypt across the desert, because there's only, according to treaties, there's only certain type of military equipment allowed in certain zones. So we were just observers out there. But for me, one, that it was a great deployment for me. Again, young kid out there learning, probably learned some pretty good tactics with all the time in the field in Germany, and now coming out here manning remote sites with just a squad leader and a lieutenant out there, and an infantry squad. We would do remote patrols across the desert in like some Hilux Toyota vehicles, just like 3 or 4 man patrols. So you'd have your squad leader with you or an LT, and usually just 2 or 3 other infantrymen. And we would go out there like combat load of ammo and everything, drive out for 3 or 4 hours across the just like open desert. Sometimes we'd run into Bedouins. There would be Bedouin tribal members just going across the desert and with camels. And the first time, actually, our squad leader, the first patrol I went on, he's like, okay, when we get out there, you might see some Bedouins. They're probably going to be armed. You're going to see AK-47s, RPGs with them. So you got your full combat load. Don't start drawing down or anything. Like, we're just keeping peace out here. We're just observing. So don't get freaked out. So that was your initial like entry to these remote patrols. And we would get out there, and sure enough, we come across a Bedouin group. It's all their families and everybody, but they're pretty heavily armed for just people, I guess, like out in the middle of the desert, but it's probably not the safest place. So they had AK-47s and everything, and they just come up, and our squad leader would talk to like the tribal leader of that tribe, and a couple of them would know some English, and usually we'd give them some MREs and give the kids some like candy and stuff, and they were all smiles. So it was about just really building relationships and keeping the peace. We're armed, they're armed, but we're just out here and we have a job to do, and we're doing it. So it was a great experience. I think that the calmness, that we learned, that you're armed, you're approaching armed people, but still there doesn't have to be any conflict. So the staying alert but calm in the presence of like some situations that could be chaotic situations, it really instilled in me, I think, some good traits, and that later on in some of my deployments, I think helped serve me to in some of those other situations that were probably could have been a little bit more conscious or conflictory.
What brigade were you in the 101st?
Back then I was in, I think because they reorganized 101st right after I left. But back then I was in the 2nd of 502nd,
Okay.
50 Deuce Strike Force.
Yeah, I was in 1st Brigade, and I'm like, for some reason, 3rd Brigade had a big arrogance to them, Rakasant.
Yeah, I had a buddy that was in the Rakasans. Yeah, they thought they were the best. But yeah, so that was my end to my first, I guess, real operational type of deployment, not combat deployment though. And then as soon as we returned from the 6-month deployment, we were on I think we had a week leave or whatever, and I was on leave with some other infantry buddies, and then one of my friends was driving, and we got in a car accident. Pretty significant car accident. So I went from great deployment, working out in great shape and really moving forward, I guess, in my career, and then to a pretty serious car accident where I ended up spending a month in the hospital and had a bunch of surgeries. I crushed my right orbital, broke my nose, broke my jaw, and a few other injuries here or there. So it was it wasn't fun, but again, I think that's the experience. And at that time, the military didn't really look at TBIs. They're like, you have some physical injuries. We've healed your physical injuries. You're good. But I definitely experienced TBI at that time, and so I wasn't good, but I was still healing. And my end of service came right then. So it was either time to re-enlist right now or go do something else. And so probably in big part because of the accident and recovery that I went ahead and I was like, well, I'll just get out and get a job or go to college. So I exited the service, got my honorable discharge, and then I started doing some job exploration first for security, something in the security sector, and really, I went. Probably my biggest mistake was going back home to a very small town. So there's not a lot of job opportunities there. So I found that out probably rather quickly, and then I went ahead and started college. So I started at a community college first, and I ultimately I got my associate's degree. I did another extra year in college, but I think the value of that one, I started to learn the value of education for myself, but also recovering and resiliency from the injuries. I mean, because recovering from TBIs again is it's not an overnight thing, but I think because I kept that the working out that I learned in the military. So from day one, when I got out, I kept exercising. I had a old buddy from back home. We went to the gym, 5 days a week. And then even not finding a career path, I started college. So started improving. And at that time, and being young, and I think I really learned about resiliency, about self improvement, working on yourself to make better yourself, to make an improved and better future. So I learned a lot of. It was rough for a while, but I learned a lot of good values. I think out of the injuries.
Okay. So, as a squad leader or a leadership position in the infantry, right? Sometimes you wake up, you do PT, then you come in 09, the sun's shining, it's feeling good outside. It's really easy to be a leader then. What does leadership look like at 02 when it's pouring down outside and you got a mission?
Yeah, that's 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 where that's where the rubber meets the road with leadership, right? And I think that's where, especially in when I went through infantry, my first infantry unit, also I had some phenomenal squad leaders, really some great first sergeants. So the mentorship that they provided with that self-discipline and overall discipline, when I was even so I was a team leader when I went to the Sinai deployment in the Sinai Desert. So I was a infantry team leader for a squad team leader at that time. So again, probably the lowest rank of leadership responsibility. But even then, from all that background, I think that's what that discipline really taught you, that it doesn't matter, it doesn't matter what the conditions are, because the conditions are always going to change, but we're still who we are. We still do what we do. We still have a mission and focus on that mission. And really, like, that's the whole NCO side, accomplishment and mission and welfare of your soldiers. And so by having some great mentors that taught me that, especially even in Germany on my first one, and there at 501st, some phenomenal ones, some phenomenal leaders that was instilled in me. And so it made it easy that when it came to the time that you are in charge, whether it's a fire team or a platoon or something, that this is the mission and the conditions don't matter. Just get it done. Accomplish what the goal is. So
So what was it like? Did you get an opportunity to play in Afghanistan?
I did. I'll go ahead. So after my gap in service, actually toward the end of that, I my father passed away. So I learned some great lessons there in really grief and loss. And but with some conversations I had with my father, I looked at rejoining the military earlier. I just looked a couple of times. Actually, at that time, the military was going through a big downsize, so it wasn't really easy to get back into the military, even if you had honorable discharge or what. But then after my father's passing, we had a lot of conversations, and he really, I guess, probably was instrumental in me rejoining the Army, because we had discussions about, you enjoyed the travel. You got to travel to Germany, you got to travel to Spain, You got to see some sights. You got to learn some skills and have some good camaraderie, and learn some personal discipline. So like why, if that's something that you're so interested in, then why not continue to pursue that and rejoin and make it a career? And so because of that, and then his passing, untimely passing, unfortunately, it really made me self-reflect on, what do I want to do with the rest of my life? I mean, I've got some education, but do I want to follow that route completely, or do I want to do something that it's probably a more adventurous route, but something that I can make a profession also? And so that's when I chose to rejoin. And I didn't rejoin the infantry. I love the infantry. I love the background. I loved all the camaraderie. I think it's probably the tightest there than, especially in combat arms units, than most any other units in the military. And so, but I started looking at, okay, what future job skills? Because I got out the first time and did some job exploration in security sector, and especially in my small town, and I didn't really find anything. So what can I do? And IT was big at the time, so I reclassified to Signal to 25 Bravo, which is basically IT. I think it's information technology maintainer and something like that, basically. So you're just working with computers, networking, circuits, and that type of field. And so in the IT field, I rejoined. Actually, I I had to go through basic training again, which was probably just due to some recruiter. Everybody's got a recruiter story about a recruiter lying, or so my recruiter didn't necessarily lie to me, but my recruiter was, when I sought to rejoin the Army, I took the test again. I scored great on the ASVAB. He's like, okay, you can have any job, but all the jobs he was giving me were like the needs of the Army jobs, like this job or this job. I was like, no, I don't want any of those. I want this, IT job. He's like, well, we don't have any openings for prior service. So he kept trying to steer me towards something else, and I wasn't budging. So finally, he's like, okay, well, we have an opening. You're going to leave in such time. Just sign it here. So I signed the line. I rejoined, and little did I know until I got to basic training is that he put me in. They had only a few select prior service slots, or they have a whole lot of slots for new people joining the Army. They've never been in the Army. So he put me on a slot for somebody that had never been in the Army for that job. So I showed up day one at the in processing center, I guess, at Fort Benning, Georgia, for the second time. And there's like, okay, all prior service, you go over here. So I start going over here. Like, no, they're calling out names. Like, no, you're over here. I was like, well, I'm prior service. They're like, no, you're not. Get over here. And so I had to give them the story. They're like, well, you're not prior. You're prior service. Okay, you got a DD-214, but on our paperwork, you're in this pile. So you're going over here. So it was a little bit interesting. I went to basic training for the second time, and I mean, obviously, 4 years in the infantry, going into basic training, the drill sergeants right away were like, why do you know all this? What's happening here? I'm like, well, I spent 4 years in the infantry. That's why I know this. And so I ended up, I didn't get special treatment per se, but they're like, all the stuff that you're going to take all the tests again. You're going to learn everything, but you're going to help everybody else, learn it too. So I ended up being an asset to them to help teach everything that was supposed to be taught at basic.
Did you have an arrogance about you? Like, what am I doing here with all these pogues?
No. Because I still had to complete, I still had to pass the test. But I mean, obviously I had a confidence that I've done all this before and then some. So I didn't have any fear of failure at that point. Like the first time when you go through basic, right? You're just trying to get through it. This time, I had no fear of failure. So I was just trying to help out everybody that I could help out and who was having problems. So it was good. I mean, it was an experience too. And then I went to the AIT for the signal. And then my first unit was Korea, which again, drastically different culture, but I loved it. So I loved seeing and just my curiosity. I really like to experience new cultures. So I was in Korea for my first assignment, and 9/11 happened at my first assignment. I started as a help desk tech. Basically, somebody has a computer or printer problem, and I'm there to help them out. And then I transitioned over to um, a sergeant, and so now I had peers, and then all suddenly I'm a leader, the E5 sergeant, and still my peers. So I had to learn the going from, just peers to now leadership roles. But thankfully, I had, again, a phenomenal Sergeant Gibson, phenomenal squad leader and really platoon sergeant at the time. So he was a great mentor and really helped through some of those transitions going from now, you can still be friends with everybody, but now you also have leadership responsibility that you have to take care of. So that I experienced that transition there. And then 9/11 occurred while I was there. I was out because of my infantry background. One of the units was out. One of the other signal units was out in the woods on like they're 2 weeks out for some training, and they asked our first sergeant, "Hey, can you get a couple of guys to go do OP4, do some opposing force tactics? Make sure our guys are staying up and doing the tactical side." So my first sergeant, a couple of E7s, and then myself went out in the woods, and we're out there in the middle of the night crawling through rice paddies, doing OP4 attacks on these guys, having a lot of fun. And I was partnered up with my first sergeant, and then he got a call on his cell phone. He's like, so we had been out there probably 3 or 4 hours having a lot of fun doing all these ambushes and attacks, and then getting back into the rice paddies. I don't know if we were supposed to be in those or not. So anyway, the first time I got a phone call from the company commander. It's like, "Hey, you got to come in here now." He's like, "Oh, we're out here doing OP4." He's like, "No, like something's happening. You gotta come back right immediately." So we all got in our vehicle, went back to the company office, and the company commander was there. Really, every E7 and officer in the company were there, all the lieutenants and everybody. And then we saw on TV that once we arrived, the second plane had hit the tower and was all being televised on TV. And so obviously in Korea, it was in the evening, and we knew right then, something's happening. And then, no sooner than the second plane hits the Twin Tower, then we go on full alert. We're like, everybody, the whole continent's on full alert. Everybody goes in, everybody's recalled, and then you're actually drawn. Typically we would go and we'd prepare, and you would draw out ammo even from the arms room, but everything would stay sealed. And then now you're breaking the seals, passing out all the combat load for ammo. Everybody's going to their protection sites around the base, because when that occurred, when 9/11 occurred, you really didn't know what to expect or what was going to happen, especially if you were overseas. So it was really that's when their army as a whole changed. Yeah, it brings back a lot of memories, huh?
Right. So your MOSs were 11 Bravo, and then
And
you
then
went to what?
25 Bravo.
Which was Signal,
Yeah.
and then where?
And then, so then I ended up going to officer school a little bit later on, a couple assignments later. And when I went to officer school at that time, I went to OCS, and then they gave you what your branch was going to be. So for me, it was 25 Alpha, which was a signal officer. But I'll back up with just some lessons that I learned. So after 9/11, I was in Korea. Then I went to Third ID. So in Third ID, we really worked on all the automation computers, making sure everybody's logistics can order parts for all their vehicles, all the tanks, all the APCs, Bradleys, and whatever. Make sure all the aircraft can order parts for their tanks. So that's what I did for an IT job there as an E5. And then obviously at that time there was the buildup to go into OIF-1 into Iraq for the Operation Iraqi Freedom. So I went with Third ID. Actually, I went kind of advanced party to Kuwait, and then prepared for OIF-1. And so I was there, and this is probably, I guess, one of my surreal memories from the military is when we got out into our combat assembly area. I'm a young E5, and then we actually started to go. Okay, we got the call. The vehicle's on the move. You're going toward the berm, and then at night, you could see everybody's small. They had their marker lights on the vehicles. So I mean, you've got like a mile long of vehicles when all you can see is the little tiny marker lights on the vehicles. And several, on both sides of you see all these long lines of vehicles while you're at the berm, and bulldozers are cutting through the berm that's between Kuwait and Iraq. So I just still remember like just sitting there, like this isn't a Sinai deployment now. This is like a real deployment in real combat. So just that scene really sits with me. Just what was coming next. And then we went through the berm. We did what we were supposed to do. We went up to Baghdad. I was attached with the aviation brigade first, and then I came back to Kuwait midway through. And I think everybody knows on OIF-1 it was okay. We went in. We've taken Baghdad. Okay, we're going to start winding down. And we quickly learned that at that time, some of the groups was the Saddam Fedayeen, some of the irregular warfare groups that were there. And so then, the second part of the war started, I guess. So I went back to Kuwait, and then I came back forward to Baghdad, downtown, supporting the second BCT. So I spent the second half of my deployment up there in Baghdad with second BCT, and just it was still the cowboy days. So we're riding all around Baghdad, getting shot at, and but kind of not really experiencing what came like shortly after that. But again, that I think what I reflect on with that was really the calmness that I learned in kind of like the calmness and chaos really that I learned even in my Sinai deployment, just being out on the remote patrols. So one situation when I was in Iraq, we had a vehicle that had a flat tire, and it was pulling a big water blivet. So this is logistics side. So it was pulling a big water blivet, and they had a flat tire, so they had to stop. The rest of the company convoy moved forward. So it was just my vehicle, one other vehicle, and then the vehicle with a flat tire that was left back there. So I stopped. I told the other vehicle to stop. We went over. We started helping them to change the vehicle. And as we're changing the vehicle, we pulled our vehicles out, kind of a herringbone, because there was only 3 of us vehicles left, and nobody had any comms. So this is definitely OIF-1. Nobody had any comms in their vehicles. So the last vehicle with comms had already taken off. And then we started hearing some mortar round impacts. I was like, oh, so we dismounted. They're changing the vehicle. So immediately, once I heard the first mortar round impact, I'm like, okay, you get here, get on the vehicle, start spotting. They got a spotter over there, start looking. If you see a target of opportunity, take your target of opportunity. Get the other guys. So we started spreading out, getting everybody else on the ground, started looking for, and as the mortar rounds just kept plopping in closer and closer and closer, I was like, oh shit. And so anyway, I go back to check on the specialist that was with me on my team, the software automation team. I'll never forget, specialist Leroy Watley from Alabama, big dude. So the mortar rounds are getting very close now. I mean, like they're impacting, the last one impacts about 200 meters from us. And we're like, just leave the tire. You know, we got it changed. Like, just leave the tire. And Leroy grabs that tire up over his head and throws it over, I mean, probably 10 feet over the back of the truck into the back of the truck, over the siding. And with that, you know, when you have a mortar round landing 200 meters away, you have some superhuman strength. So he picks it up over his head, throws it in there. It's like, all right, we're out of here. So I say, everybody mount up, and everybody got in there in the vehicles and took off. And I just followed up the trail of dust that everybody left us behind in, and we just got out of there before, like I said, right after that last round impacted, you know, getting pretty close, too close for comfort. Then we all loaded up and got out of there. So the calmness, I think, I don't think I saw some of the younger, because I was a little bit older at the time, so I had more maturity. But I saw some of the younger, you know, 18, 19-year-olds were just like, oh shit, like there's explosions, like what do I do? And it's like, so it just was natural for me, especially with that infantry background, say, okay, here, get over here, get behind cover, get behind your vehicle, start looking for targets. This is, you're going to look for this, and kind of just managing that just came natural to me from my past experiences, and not panicking and, you know, leaving somebody out there or something.
Now, quick question, Mike. So, going back a little bit from after you got through a basic and again, your second basic,
Yeah.
going to a regular signal unit. Now, this was third ID, right?
Yes.
So, going from an infantry unit to a support unit, was that a culture shock for you?
It
Or how
definitely
was
was. Yeah. Well, first of all, I mean, the first culture shock is, in the infantry unit, we didn't have any females anywhere at that time. I think, you know, times have changed now, but at that time, even the support, you know, at the motor pool, there was no females at all. So it was all male environment. So going to that, you know, those first signal units, and now I have, it's male female integrated. It was a nice change, but it was definitely, I mean, it was a culture shock for me at first. Just, I mean, it just wasn't what I was used to from that brotherhood in the military, in the infantry. But then I mean, I think the great part of that also, I've got several NCOs that were female NCOs along the way, from several locations, including there at Third ID, that were like professional, strong female NCOs that, you know, they made things happen too. So there was no difference in the professionalism that I saw in, you know, in some. I mean, it's just like everybody else, just whether male or female. Sometimes, you know, you have some phenomenal leaders. Sometimes you have some okay leaders, and sometimes you have some leaders that you learn, you know, this is what not to do. So it's the same experience there with being integrated with male and female leaders.
Absolutely. Now, when did you go to South Sudan?
Much later. So I'll jump to that. But so after OIF-1, I did another leadership school for Signal. After that, I went to Korea again. So I had another assignment with Korea. Again, some phenomenal leadership. So I learned. I was running a section. Really, basically was a battalion S6 into IC. So I was running an S6 section for a signal battalion at that time. So another great, you know, increased responsibility, and just learning to really advocate for a section and advocate for your subordinates to senior leaders, that was really probably my first real experience. So now I'm not only taking care of a fire team or a small team, but the section that I'm now in charge of training and delivering on the mission. And now I'm actually having to advocate with the command sergeant majors, with the lieutenant colonel for the battalion on a regular basis. So it was a great experience too. Again, a lot of lessons learned at that. And then from there, I went to I went to Tampa. I was to CENTCOM to the J2, and um, I went to basically what was a help desk, an IT help desk. But at that time, they were transitioning the IT help desk to a regional network operations center for the intelligence network. So we supported customers, across the Middle East and really every other continent, like all 7 continents, and thousands of intelligence customers. And so I worked with just a GS civilian, an Air Force major, an Army Sergeant First Class. Really, the GS civilian, the Army Sergeant First Class, and myself did this whole transition to this from just a regular, kind of everyday help desk to this regional network operations center. So I think for myself, looking back on it, that's where I learned the professionalism to really be a professional and to take challenges. I had to get outside of my comfort zone on that. My first lesson there was we transitioned. We had an Air Force '06 full-bird colonel in charge of of the element there, and then an Army '06 came in, and the Army '06 was very much Army. And so from having an Air Force leader to an Army leader, some of the, not all, but some of the Air Force, especially the Air Force major that was in charge of our section, they were not used to the Army way of doing things, and really the directness, I think, of the Army. So, because the Air Force is typically looked at, again, and no offense out there, because I mean they're professionals, but it's more looked at, especially on the officer side, as more of a business-like environment. And the Army is looked at as, a tactical, operational type of environment. So when you had that transition from an Army colonel, Air Force colonel to an Army colonel, like it created some, organizational impacts. So the major that was in charge of our section, that was typically giving the daily the daily update to the colonel. So the operational update to the colonel every morning, Monday through Friday. When the Army colonel came in, after 2 weeks of the Army colonel being there and him drilling down on wanting to know like everything that's happening, like making sure that there's a clear understanding of everything that's going on and what the root causes are and what we're doing to fix, things that are deficient. It got transitioned to Staff Sergeant Dave's at the same time. Hey, you're going to start giving the daily update to the colonel instead of the major. I was like, well, what sense does that make? But anyway, and I was definitely outside of my comfort zone. I have to brief an '06 every day on the daily situational updates for everything, and then field questions, and luckily, I was the only one providing the update, but there was all the other GS directors around the table, and lieutenant colonels and majors that were providing some of the feedback. But for me, I really was outside of my comfort zone, but it was such a great growth moment for me, I think, at that assignment. And then when we transitioned to that full operations center, I learned so many valuable lessons there through a lot of mistakes, but learned so many valuable lessons on professionalism and really getting outside your comfort zone. Because once you get outside your comfort zone, that's when like real growth happens, I think. So
Yeah, I was about to say, so you went, your feet was kind of put to the fire, so you had to brief the colonel. So that kind of forced you to, like we just talked about, get out your comfort zone, but it forced you to be better. And I imagine after time and time again of briefing the colonel every day, you got better and better at it, and it ultimately led to your success when you crossed over to officer. Yeah.
yeah, I think you're absolutely right. Because like I said, that assignment really taught me professionalism. Um, it taught me about really to learn confidence in advocating with those senior leaders, and then also really it taught me a lot about strategic thinking, because I think I was very versed in tactical tactical level thinking at that time up until then. But now to see like an '06, a very competent '06, and the strategic level of thinking that he's looking at and operational level, yeah, it definitely helped set conditions for success, future success, I think, for me as an officer. So from there, I went to OCS. I was looking at, when I left Korea, I was looking at doing a warrant officer packet to be a helicopter pilot. And then I had my platoon leader in Korea was encouraging me to do a commission officer packet. So I was like, well, I'll start working on both. So I started working on both. I got some letters of recommendation for the warrant packet and for the commission packet. And when I got to Tampa, I had to wait for a period of time before I could submit anything. But then I submitted my commission officer packet for OCS, and I actually got direct selected by General Custer, who was the J2 general at CENTCOM at the time. I had to do an office call with the senior enlisted advisor for the J2 first, and after I passed his initial, he looked at my packet. He had a one-on-one with me, and then after I passed his initial one, he actually he looked at all my stats, and at the time I was probably very very athletic, but if you're looking at my weight, I was borderline overweight, but it's because I was pretty athletic at the time, so in my younger years. So anyway, he was pretty direct. So he called me up on the phone. I was in the network operations center. He was like, "Hey, I see your OCS packet here." I was like, "Yes, I think senior chief master sergeant is what they are for the Air Force." And he's like, "Looks like you're fat and overweight." I was like, "No, I'm not. I think I'm in good shape. If you look at my PT scores, I've got good scores." He's like, "Get over here into my office." I was like, "Okay, yes, I'll be right there." So I went over to his office. He's like, "Take your blouse off." And then, I was athletic at the time. This is something that probably the civilians don't understand as much, but I think for veterans, we understand, that fit to fight mentality. So as soon as he saw me in person, he's like, "Okay, you're not a fat boy, because I'm not about to send a fat boy to OCS." So then I got his approval. He asked me a lot of situational leadership questions, got through him, and then I had an appointment with General Custer, and General Custer had a one-on-one appointment with me. I didn't think it was going to be like a formal one-on-one, but I appreciate now, looking back, that really, this is a general officer. He's obviously task saturated, busy, but he took the time out for, one NCO that was trying to go to OCS, and spent a good amount of time one-on-one, and again, talking about leadership and talking about career and trajectory, and a lot of good mentorship, really. And then he signed it, so I became direct selected. So I didn't even have to compete after that, and I got direct selected for OCS and went to OCS just a couple months later as an E7 going to OCS. So I was lucky. I was really blessed with that, I think.
How do you think did you have a process, like how did you earn trust?
That's a great question. I think earning trust, I really, for me, I don't know, it just comes about really honesty and integrity. I mean, even from my father, that's, probably one of the virtues I learned from my father, is that the strong work ethic and really just integrity, just doing the right thing. And so from that and being honest, I don't know. I mean, I think that's the easiest way to earn trust.
Absolutely, that sounds good.
Yeah,
Your work and your integrity speaks for itself.
right. Yeah. I mean, it sounds easy, but I think we're all put up in situations sometimes to where maybe a lapse in integrity, or, I mean, sometimes we have, I'm sure, we're all human. We all have lapses of integrity, I think, but we're all put in those situations to where, when it comes to building trust and building relationships, that, you could do something, you could say something maybe that isn't honest, and it's what you make it and what you do at that time. But again, I also think probably from my personal growth time before I came back in the military when I was in college, I did a lot of self-reflection and personal growth. And I used to listen to a salesperson that I don't know, he was famous. He's old and passed on now, but his name was Zig Ziglar. So he's famous about had all these sales tapes and CDs out there. Um, but he was a motivational speaker. But one of those things that stuck with me, one of his sayings was, failure is an event, not a person. And so I always like that. Failure is an event, not a person, because we all fail at something. We all make mistakes. I try to teach my children now that just that, like, okay, you failed at something. You're not a failure. You failed at something, but that's how your brain learns. When you make a mistake, your brain pays more attention, and now you're learning something. So that's to transition to learning, you have to make mistakes. And so, yeah, so that's kind of that lesson that carried forward, I think, for me, that integrity and honesty and building the relationships.
So Mike, how was it like when it was time to transition from the military to the corporate world?
You're fast forwarding me here. So I'll quickly I'm gonna cover just the ending my in transition of career, and then I'll get to
All
the
right, go
corporate.
ahead.
So I transitioned to officer. I did my first assignment as an officer actually in Afghanistan. I went to a unit that was in Qatar. So I actually PCS to Qatar, and then the full battalion was forward deployed to Afghanistan. So then I went to Afghanistan. I took over a FOB. I think by this time, again, from my background, I was really in some of my peak performance, just to being that senior NCO and learning a lot of the leadership attributes that I learned along the way. So I had a pretty successful time, although I had some injuries in Afghanistan, because I was out on a FOB. I was in FOB Sharana, which was in Patika province. So we didn't get attacked often, but we got attacked probably often enough out there to let you know that you're still in a combat zone, and some complex attacks. Had some injuries coming out of there, but nothing major. So then I transitioned from Afghanistan. I went on. The Army at the time had a degree completion program, so I went from 1 year in Afghanistan and really full combat deployment, with some excitement here and there along the way, to finishing my degree for 8 months, finishing my bachelor's degree on the Army's dime back in Tampa, where my family had been living. So out through my school, my officer schools, and then deployment. So then I completed my degree. I went to my next officer school, which was the Captain's Career Course. And it was there because I had several experiences in OIF-1 in Iraq, with some being around some special operations soldiers and some SF soldiers. And then again in Afghanistan, seeing some, being around, there was some SF soldiers, some SEALs, and some CA teams that were there in Afghanistan when I was there, working in Patika province. So anyway, being around that, when I came back, I finished my degree. I went to the Captain's Career Course. I had applied for civil affairs at the time. So you do just a paperwork application first. They review it at branch and say, yes, either yes, you can go to assessment selection, or no, try again later. So I got, after I finished the Captain's Career Course and another short course, I went to Fort Bragg to do the assessment and selection for CA assessment selection, which was, I think, about 2 weeks. So 2 weeks of rigor, physical events, a lot of ambiguity. Like, and previously in the military, like if you're going on a 12-mile road march, you're going on a 12-hour road march. You got to have at least a 35 or 45-pound pack. You got to have so much water. You got to do 12 miles. You got to do it in this period of time. When you go to assessment selection, it's okay. You have much more than a 35-pound rucksack. I mean, when you're packing the water and everything else, it's whatever, 65 or 75 pounds. They say, okay, you're going to do basically a ruck march. You're going to be timed on this event. You put the little IR thing in your boot so they know when you cross the start line and when you cross the finish line. And they're like, are there any questions? And the first day, the first questions are, well, how far are we going? How much time do we have? They're like, okay, next question. Any other questions? It's like, so, okay, well, it's a timed event. I don't know what the time is. I don't know the distance. I don't know how well to pace myself. So go. And so it was a lot different. A lot of rigorous physical events. They'd give you some information, like before you start the physical event. A lot of times they give you some information on, well, like could be military history or something else. So they'll read all this out to you. You're listening, paying attention. You go do this physical event, some undisclosed location for do a ruck march. As soon as you get back, then they're like, okay, write an essay on this, that, the information we gave you on this, or talking about this or that. So now you're writing an essay. And so it was like that all the way through. There was a lot of physical team events where you had to do some problem solving, but they were highly physical. And then again, so at the end of the assessment selection, you see a lot of people ring the bell and don't make it through. Even on the first night, I think the first 18 hours, there's people ring that bell, like, oh, I'm done. I called it. So then making it all the way through the assessment selection, where everybody's out on their gear at the end of the assessment selection, and then people are walking up, being called up one by one by the cadre and doing a counseling. And when they leave there, they're either, yeah, I was accepted, I completed and I'm accepted, so now I'll go to the Q course, or I completed everything and I'm not accepted and I have to either try again or something. So I saw there was actually a buddy of mine. I mean, I felt terrible about. He was in the CAPS career course with me, and we both went there to assessment selection. He made it through the whole thing also, and then when he went up there for the counseling, he came back with his head hanging low and didn't get accepted. So, and luckily, I was blessed and God was with me on that one. I made it through, got accepted, and then went through more than a year Q course there at Bragg. We went to language school and a lot of tactics, a lot of regional studies. My regional studies were on really the Indo-PACOM area. And then I went to special operations, and then I met John Jones. So my first CA battalion, I met John Jones. Like I said, John Jones, he was, again, he a professional, great NCO background and experience and leadership, and always making people smile, always making people laugh constantly. So it was, John Jones was like in our company, was really like the pinnacle leader that you want to have around, that he's knowledgeable, he's a great team builder, and he's great at like making people laugh and building relationships. And for civil affairs, that's a big part of what it's all about, is building those relationships with foreign militaries, with foreign civilian populations, with humanitarians. So yeah, John was great asset to the company there.
Appreciate it, brother. The reason why I hung around you so much because you laughed at all my jokes.
Yeah.
And that was just to be honest. And so you did what deployments did you do with civil affairs?
I did. So I went on a short deployment to Jordan with one of the guests that was on here before, Major William. Oh gosh, I just blanked out his name. Williams. Yeah, William Richardson. That's it. I can't think of his. I can't think of his last name. So William Richardson, Major William Richardson. He was the company commander. So I went with him and then Dan Vitale to Jordan. So we helped support multinational training event there in Jordan. Actually, we helped them prepare to set up a humanitarian zone, which later, when Syria conflict kicked off, they actually actioned and set up the humanitarian kind of exclusion zone. So anyway, I went to Jordan there. Then I went to South Sudan. I went to South Sudan. We did what we called was a vet red. So it was a veterinary training engagement. Basically, we worked with the South Sudanese government, the veterinarian, the Ministry of Animals and Fisheries. So the veterinarians for the government and the military veterinarians, and to set up a national veterinary campaign, because in South Sudan, cattle is cash. So however rich you are is how many cattle you have in South Sudan. So that's why we chose a veterinary event. And we did that really to help build and bridge relationships across from the government professionals to the military, because there is kind of a broadening gap, especially along tribal groups in South Sudan at the time. So I did that. We did a very successful veterinary event. However, as soon as we got on the plane to fly back, South Sudan started a civil war between really those two primary tribal groups. So I remember, I think maybe it was Will Richardson, when we came back, we are like, well, you went there to help improve professional relations between the military and the government, and as soon as you fly out, a civil war breaks out. So what measure of success is that? But anyway, no, it was a great experience though also. And then the final one I went with you on. My team and your team, we went to Cameroon.
That's right. I enjoyed that deployment.
It was good. Yeah. Getting to work with the Cameroonians, then some Nigerians, some other countries. Although I got sick on that deployment. I mean,
for real? What was you sick from?
There was a small group of us. I don't know if, once we flew up north in Cameroon, and we were kind of up in the bush, living in the tents there for a while, doing some training. There was a small group of us, maybe about 10 or 12 people. I don't know if it was something we ate or the mosquitoes carrying something, but about 10 or 12 of us got real sick. And I think 10 of the people medevaced back to, was it Douala? And then me and a major, hard-headed, stuck it out up there at the camp. So it was right out in between some of our training. Then I was like down on the cot for like probably 2.5 days. I probably lost 15 pounds in like 2.5 days there. It was rough. I don't know what sickness I had, but then thank God I had I had my team medic there, so he pumped me up with Cipro and everything else, and
what was the team medic name?
That was Mike, Specialist Mike.
I remember Mike. I know
what was his last name.
Who did I have?
Who did you have on that? Oh, you had
you remember? I remember his face. I just can't remember how to say his name.
That's me. I'm a face person, not a name person. So I don't know.
He was pretty wild, man.
Yeah.
I met him, but he was experienced. He had been like E7, E6 at the time. I had did I? Yeah, I had E6. I can't remember his name, but I remember he had one time I wasn't feeling up to par. He was like, "You all right, Jones?" I'm like, "I'm good." And he just put this pill in front of my face. And that was like, and I didn't even ask him. I just took it. And I took it because he was my medic. Hey, man, I was moving all around the place. I was getting stuff done. And it just dawned on me. I'm like, hold on. I was just depressed. I walked up to him. I said, hey, what did you give me? He said, I gave you Adderall. Oh, man, what is wrong with this guy?
My man was super focused after that.
I was just, hey, I went from feeling bad to I can do it. I said something not right.
Yeah, that's
He
funny.
said, he said I gave you Adderall. So how long was you in civil affairs for, Mike?
I was in civil affairs for about 12 years, I think.
Did you enjoy it?
Yeah, overall I enjoyed it. What I didn't enjoy was some of the deployment injuries. I mean, like there in Cameroon, whatever I got sick with, I mean, it
Mm,
stuck with me for a while. So when I went back and talked to like battalion docs and stuff, they're like, "Oh, you're fine." I'm like, I don't feel fine. I don't feel the
right,
same. So it was a hard journey to get over
right.
whatever it was. And the army doctors, unfortunately, the joke about army doctors, like in a medical class, what do you call the bottom third of the medical graduating class?
What?
Army doctor. so, uh, so now
And
I have met some great army doctors, but it is the exception, not the rule. I've unfortunately met some that weren't great. I'm not saying the one at that battalion was bad either, but they're just like when you're out there in a tropical environment, they're not really trained on like tropical medicine and like really how you get you back and up over those type of conditions. So anyway, it was a hard road to recovery to me. In my next unit, I went to a battalion S3, assistant S3, and then I deployed to South Sudan. So I went to South Sudan once on the short deployment in our company, and then there was an assignment for a year deployment to South Sudan, supporting the UNCJTF in South Sudan, which was the military force there. There was a peace enforcement mission on a peace enforcement mission because of the civil war in South Sudan. So I went there for a year. When I first arrived, I went on with there was a small 6-person team of Americans. So I went with two Marines and myself and went there. But overall, I was the country coordinator for the force headquarters for protection of civilians and displaced civilians and refugees. So it was again overall an enriching assignment. I got to work with. I learned about you talked before, Big Pan, about relationships. So in there, I was a member of the protection cluster for the force headquarters. So I had to go to all these humanitarian meetings like twice a week. And my first time being in military uniform and a humanitarian with 40 other humanitarians, the whole thing was just target practice at me. Every comment, every quip was, there's a military guy here and we're all humanitarians. So, I mean, it was rough. The first week or two was you're just the butt of everybody's joke and talking about what the military is not doing the whole time. But really, I learned to just build relationships, be honest. If there was something that happened and really the military could have done more, then yeah, you're right. The military couldn't do more. If you give me that information, let's make sure that we adapt and adjust to that so that we can do more, especially when it's come to protection of civilians. So once I started showing them that I actually care about the humanitarian operations that they're doing in that complex environment, then I started to win. Even like some of the most Doctors Without Borders, MSF, they're like some of the most anti-military humanitarians, but highly competent. They're doing a much needed service. Doctors Without Borders providing a lot of medical care for refugees and displaced persons. So after showing them that I care and that we're trying to respond with the military force to provide the protection of civilians and to make adjustments, then I really won them over, I think, is relationship wise. And then that helped spur on other operations. We ended up setting up a patrol base in one of the most highest conflict and civilian casualty areas in the country in Bintu, um, with the relationships that I built with humanitarians, with World Food Program, with UNHCR, MSF, and then with the force headquarters combined together and set up a patrol base that helped reduce the civil casualties in that area. And so there was a lot of success that came out of really building, listening to people, building those relationships off of honesty, and then, really doing what you say you were going to do. And so again, it was I had some complications at the end of that deployment also. I got typhoid. Like my predecessor that I relieved, I got typhoid, and soon after, it took them about a month to diagnose that I had typhoid, because there was no U.S. doctors there. We had a Cambodian military hospital, and then after about a month of diagnosis, they figured out I had typhoid and got medicine for that, and then no sooner than that, I got giardia, and then I redeployed back. So that was some interesting time where I really had to learn about sometimes you need to ask for help, and that path to resilience and recovery.
So you've had a lot of hats in the military. You went from E1 to a senior non-commissioned officer, then you went from O1 to a field grade officer. What rank do you think is the most special to you that you got promoted that rank? You say, okay, this is what I'm talking about.
So honestly, for me, depending on the rank of Sergeant First Class was a huge milestone in my life. I did that in Tampa when I was there. Like I said, all the assignments before that, leading up to that, really helped increase my level of awareness, my level of professionalism, and really my level of thinking as far as operations, from tactical all the way up operational and strategic. And just really I don't know, I think when you're enlisted, especially when you enlist in the Army, at least from my perspective, that Sergeant First Class rank, being that senior non-commissioned officer, that is like the pinnacle. Because from there, there was more senior ranks. You can get Master Sergeant, you can be a First Sergeant, which again are no less honorable, I think, or a Sergeant Major or Command Sergeant Major. But reaching that first senior rank of that Sergeant First Class, and that's the rank, I think, when you're wearing that rank, you can go anywhere in the Army and in the military for that matter, and they see that rank, that they already know that you have a measure of discipline, leadership, and responsibility about you, and knowledge, I think, automatically when you wear that rank. So for me, that was really probably the highest achieved rank that really had a significant, maybe a larger size impact on myself.
So after it's all said and done, and it's time to take the uniform off, what was the hardest part?
The transition. Transition. I mean, trying to. So I ended my service at 5th Special Forces Group. I was the JEG director and then the Civil Affairs director. I did an awesome deployment with them. I went to the CJ SOTA for OIR, Operation Inherent Resolve. Had wonderful, just enriching deployment with them. Great experience. But then when I came back, I was at the time to where I need to look at my next promotion to lieutenant colonel, or my exit to the service and retirement, and then civilian life. So I think as a mixture of one, wanting to change, and then two, really honestly, some of the deployment injuries I incurred along the way. I chose I'm going to go ahead and put in my retirement packet. I'm going to transition from the service. I'll go ahead and retire. So that transition time, I didn't do it well. I learned a lot of lessons there. I didn't focus fully on that transition. The Army gives you the time to do that transition, but I was also trying to keep up with some of my duties and handing them over, train other other majors in the role that they were taking, assuming, and still trying to keep operations going and still look at transitioning as far as transitioning to civilian life, civilian career, and then transitioning even, looking at the Veterans Administration, so transition to VA to really get help with some of the other injuries I've occurred over my service as well. So I didn't do it. I did not do it gracefully at all. And in hindsight, the biggest areas of advice I would give is, one, when transitioning, once you put in your packet and you've made that decision, then commit to it. They say you have to commit. Sometimes it's disagree and commit, but in this case, you're not getting promoted anymore. You're not going for promotion. The Army, the Army's going to move without you. So focus that time that the Army's providing to fully focus on transition and learning everything you can. Because I went from 26 years in the military and never really doing a civilian resume. Because we have our OERs or ERBs and all this stuff is our resume. And so writing a resume and then making it sound like anywhere close to what a civilian's going to understand, what your level of responsibility was, what your peak performance accomplishments were on a resume is, it's not a small task if your whole mindset has been the military your whole life. So getting started on that resume, there's a lot of veteran service providers out there that help writing resumes. I think Hire Heroes is one of the organizations that help with writing resumes. But taking all of those classes, taking advantage of all those transitions. There's some phenomenal transition programs. They got Hiring Our Heroes, which offers training programs with civilian companies, provides fellowships. I was smart enough at the time to get on fellowship with Hiring Our Heroes. And so I completed a resume, which, I thought it was a great resume looking from a military perspective. But then when I looked after now being working in corporate America for a couple of years, looking at corporate America perspective, it was not a good resume at all. It was not saying the right things. It was not using the right terms. So the easiest way I think for anybody to do that is, look at those jobs that you're interested in civilian career. Look at those job descriptions, mimic that, the phrasing and those keywords that they're using that to, transition from your military acronyms to those civilian terms.
Oh yeah.
So, I think there's so many great organizations, Wounded Warrior Project, the VFW, Veterans of Foreign Wars, all these other organizations really help you with transition as well too. So there's a lot of transition support out there. The Hire Our Heroes, Hiring Our Heroes. There's a lot of different avenues that I think that sometimes a lot of us in the military, we already have kind of a mindset of we're professional, we know what we're doing, and so we don't seek enough mentorship, I think, in that transition. And I know I didn't, but seeking some mentors that are already in corporate America, or already in some of those career fields, I think, and you can do that as easily by looking up on LinkedIn or whatever. I think that's really where it pays dividends for the transition. And go ahead.
So Mike, you said, what is Hiring Our Heroes and how did it specifically help you out?
Yeah. So Hiring Our Heroes, whether you're in the Army, on an Army base or on an Air Force base, as part of the transition programs, the Hiring Our Heroes is one of the transition programs that you have to just sign up for it. You get somebody in your unit to sign off on that program, but they offer either a fellowship or they offer usually some skill training, like maybe IT skills, some skill training, but with a specific company. Like they might have some IT skill training program with Microsoft or something. And so you actually go and you're learning those skills uh, that are being put on by Microsoft or some of those other companies being sponsored by them. And for myself, I went through the fellowship program. So the fellowship program was, one, you start with a resume. And again, I was scrambling to get a resume together right before I signed in. I got accepted to their program. They're like, okay, where's your resume? I'm like, it'll be here, yesterday, and I started trying to put it together haphazardly. Like I said, the first one I did was definitely not something that you would want to use. But anyway, they take your resume, they partner with about 15 different corporations, 15 or 20 different corporations, and then they have online information sessions with most of these corporations, so that you can get information about the jobs that they're offering, and then they pair you up. So basically, they share your resume for all the fellowship group. They share your resume with these corporations, and the corporations basically you select which companies you're most interested in. They select which candidates are most interested in, and then you pair up for an opportunity for a fellowship. I paired up with AWS, Amazon Web Services, which is a the cloud IT branch of Amazon. So they have IT cloud services, and found out about some roles that they had open. And then I did my fellowship, a 12-week fellowship, remotely online with AWS. And at the end of those, that usually leads to interviews. And so you go through some interview loops, and then hopefully come out with a job offer, which I did.
And so how was that transition? Was it a transition shock for you going into
It
big,
was.
a tech company?
Yeah. So one, I mean, I worked being in signal and IT. I had a background in it, but it wasn't cloud IT, and a lot has changed. So when I first transitioned, one, you have to do some certifications. So I did some of the AWS certifications, but I had the wrong focus and probably what I was told to focus on, but I think in hindsight it's not important. I was focused on, so I was basically, I'm an engagement manager. So you're basically you manage a relationship with an enterprise level customer, and you also manage a project, delivery of a project. But early on, I was told my focus should be on learning the tech as much as I can. So I spent a lot of time. And which is helpful, but in hindsight, the thing that the attributes that lend to success in that area are establishing relationships, which something in civil affairs I think I learned quite well. Just by starting off with trust, building trust, through honesty, establishing and maintaining a relationship. And again, if I have some technical knowledge, it's good, it's helpful. But every project that I deliver, I'm going to learn. I'm not the one making a technical. I'm not the one configuring the technical side of the project. That's all we have. Technical engineers and cloud architects that are doing that. So I don't need to be the subject matter expert in that area. And I was really trying I probably stress myself to come up on as much technical learning as I could in a shorter period of time. But honestly, I don't think that was uh, the right area to focus my efforts at the time. Sure, it's going to be helpful, but relying on and learning the technical engineers that you have working for you to deliver, and they're going to teach you what they need to do to deliver that project. So just managing all of those resources and ensure that you're providing, just like an NCO or an officer, make sure you're providing all the resources that need to be provided for the successful accomplishment of that goal. And then you're there as primary whenever there's encountered some problems. You're mitigating those issues or overcoming those obstacles, by pulling in other resources or whatever it is to go ahead and deliver what you're supposed to deliver. So in hindsight, I was very focused on what I don't know technically, and I was told by my managers like, yes, that's what you have to focus on is learning this technically. But in hindsight, the thing to focus on is really the leadership, and those are the skills that I already bring to the table that I really was not focusing on, I think, first. So I think for people transitioning from the military, I heard, but I really didn't understand early on, oh, corporate America needs leadership. And when I joined corporate America, I didn't understand that because all I understood was, oh, you need technical competence in these technical areas, and which isn't true. It is leadership because I had several managers. I had a phenomenal manager that hiring manager that I started with, and then AWS is more of a high op tempo organization. So then the manager changed to a different manager. The next manager, I never had a negative conversation with the manager. We always had a positive, friendly conversation, but he was an absentee leader. He didn't provide any development. He didn't provide any setting conditions for like successful advancement. And so that was new to me. Like, how can somebody like I get along with, but in my career, especially when I'm, one of the leadership principles of Amazon is, hire and develop the best. So you hire the best, but then you develop them. But like I wasn't seeing any development direction, and like I've got so much leadership experience in the military, so I know how to help set conditions and develop subordinates to achieve. But I don't know that in this corporate America. So for me, that was a big lesson to learn that it's not maybe your leader might not be as caring as for your success as in the military, and so you have to take it upon yourself there and learn the right questions to ask to set your own conditions for a successful path. So that was a hard lesson, I think, for me, but one that I learned nonetheless.
So how long did you do this job?
I've been doing this job for 3 years,
Mm.
and again, there's been a lot of ups and downs. What's different than the military that also with corporate America is I've went through with my current company. There's been 3 major layoffs while I've been there. So in the
Mm.
military, we never think about I could just lose a job unless you're doing something, so wrong in the military, getting in trouble that you're going to get kicked out. But that's still
Mm.
a long process. But it's something that the average person in the military, you don't think about the job security that you have. But in corporate America, like I joined 3 months after I joined, they laid off like 25,000 employees. I was like, oh my God, am I going to have a job next week? And so that was a whole different level of stress that it hadn't even occurred to me before. And thankfully, thank God, I made it through that. And then there was another layoff, and then more recently, it's not only AWS; it's a lot of the tech industry, but there is another pretty large, significant layoff. I think the last one was like 16,000 employees, Amazon as a whole. So not having that job security is definitely a change, but I think, and that can definitely instill some fear in you, and that instilled some fear in me. But I think, and having some leaders, again, I've had some great leaders in my current organization, my current company, but I've seen some leaders that just don't have the leadership or the care there, and so that's helped me even more recently. I went through some struggles with that, but it's helped me to rely back on that leadership and the leadership lessons that I learned in the military to say, okay, if this isn't right for me, well, one, there's just like the military, there's a lot of different roles out there. So looking at different roles, and there's a lot of different companies out there. So going back to proving my own path, I think in life is really more recently gave me the confidence to to overcome some of those concerns with, maybe not a stable career, or not the job security that we had when we were in the military.
So, what's next for you now, Michael?
What's next for me now? So, one, I'm still with my company with AWS. I'm looking at some promotion. I'm looking at some other roles, but outside of that, I'm looking at what's that, John?
No,
What are you
no,
laughing at?
listen, no, I'm not even laughing, man. You my guy. Let's go.
So what's next? I'm looking at what I didn't do. So my job is a remote job, um, and what I learned is there can be a lot of isolation if you don't connect with the community. There can be a lot of isolation with a remote job. And so for me, especially this year, my goal this year is really to reconnect with the veterans. I like talking to veterans like we are here. I like providing advocating for veterans. I help even on LinkedIn. I've been connected with a lot of veterans. I've helped with even job exploration and some other stuff. So I want to connect more this year with veterans and veteran advocacy. Um, I want to. I'm looking into some other franchises, some other opportunities, really more health related, that I can also kind of support the veteran community with as well. Because I've learned, I've had quite a few injuries that we didn't talk about all of them here today in the military. It's really, deployment related injuries and TBIs and a lot of other stuff. But because of that, I've learned also a lot about resiliency and recovery, and a lot of different techniques. And so I want to share a lot of that also with like other veterans. So that's what I'm focusing on this year.
Yeah, that's very important, man. Sharing your journey, sharing, especially a TBI, because I had a really bad TBI in 2012, and man, it's hard to recover from that. You feel like you lose your bearing. You feel like you lose a lot, because for a while I had to write everything down like I'm a 2-year-old. So, sharing your story and your resilience, I think it really resonates with people and helps them through their journey too.
Yeah, I agree. Unfortunately, I have a lot to be thankful for in my service, in my career, and all the experiences that I was able to experience in the military community. But I had probably more than my fair share of TBIs, which really definitely impacted my health and my life and my relationships. So going through and getting some help with that. Um, and I think in the military, we don't do that enough. We kind of look down on, or we used to. I think it's changing now, but we used to look down on someone that's trying to seek help. And it's like, why would you look down on somebody that's trying to get help to like overcome a challenge, especially like TBIs? And I've had so many TBIs that, yeah, it's definitely impacted my life. But I think what we learned from that and can share with others is definitely um, where the success comes for the future.
So if you could, what would be a first business that you'd build for vets? Like what problem and what metric you think you would take?
Yeah, the first one, really, what I'm looking into right now, is a business that, there's a lot of health focused, and I guess like anti-aging type focused businesses that offer different modalities like red light therapy. They got salt rooms, they've got PEMF beds, they got HBOT, portable like HBOT machines in there, the hyperbaric oxygen treatments, a lot of different modalities like that they're providing, cryotherapy. So I'm looking at a company like that provides those. So provide it for, just for the health benefits, the overall health benefits of those, because I mean it's helpful for anybody, but then also to try to specialize in providing some free services for veterans to get some of those. So I'm looking at some other companies. I know some companies that have some nonprofits where they raise money to pay for those specific type of treatments for veterans. And so I'm in some talks with some companies right now to hopefully hopefully we come along some agreements and we can open up another place like that here locally where I'm at.
Yeah, that'd be awesome, man.
And I'm very interested in the podcast. I think what you guys are doing here, I mean, it is so great hearing the story. So I've seen you've had some great guests. You've had one, I think William Richardson, me and John Jones know, great, wonderful leader, had a great transition, opening his own business outside. C.T. Fletcher, wonderful guest, Robert O'Neill. But a lot of these guys also, they're like true heroes too. So I tell other people, I wasn't a hero, but I served with a lot of heroes. And
Oh yeah.
and now I want to serve, a lot of those veterans in the life after the military, and transitioning and recovery are, I think, big points of my focus for that.
Man, I don't know, man. I think you was a hero, bro.
Mm.
After the rundown you just gave us, man. You went from infantry, doing technical work, doing everything, man. Civil affairs. Now you do IT. Man, you went from Superman, well, kind of like the bully. You went from you got to be Superman. You put the glasses on, man, and you take the glasses off. You from Superman. You know what I'm saying? So, and that's why we wanted you on the show, bro, because you're epitome of veterans that keep going, life after boots.
Hey, so I've got a quick story for you. So
All
I'll make
right.
this in fast. So hang in there. So we talked about my military service, infantry, signal, special operations. So and John, you went through all that special operations training. We go to SEER school, the was survival, evasion, resistance, and escape school, and they got a lot of phenomenal training. We did some Griffin groups, all these other special trainings that we go through. So I was in South Sudan. I was driving. I was there the second deployment. So they're in the middle of a civil war. It's semi-permissive environment. So all that special operations training background I had. So I'm a humanitarian asked me, "Oh, can you take me to the airport in the morning because there's a curfew from 10 at night to 6 a.m. and it's still dark at 6 a.m." And I was in Juba, South Sudan, so underdeveloped. Like most of the roads are not paved roads, so dark roads. There's no street lights, so when it's dark, it's dark. So I'm like, yeah, sure, I'll take you there. They can't get anybody else to take them to the airport. They got an early flight to go on vacation. So I was, okay, I'll take you there. So I get into that Toyota Hilux. They open the gate right at 0600. So I drive out. We start driving to the dirt road to the airport. Coming down one dirt road, before we make it to the paved roads, all of a sudden I see a big military vehicle parked across the road. I was like, oh shit. Because there's been people getting robbed in town by soldiers, off-duty soldiers, and militia guys, robbing people, shooting people, shoot them and then ask for their money. So there's a military vehicle, and I know there's no checkpoint here. There's not supposed to be any checkpoint. So there's a military vehicle there. I was like, oh shit. So I stopped. I was like, okay, let me back up. So as soon as I start to back up, tink, 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 somebody's on the left side of the window. I look over, it's Mr. AK-47. So there's a soldier, I don't know, off-duty soldier, militiaman, I don't know, but he's in a uniform. He's got an AK-47 tapping on the window. So I was like, oh shit. I was like, well, and I can't see who's in the vehicle, in the military vehicle. It's like a big, like military 5-ton vehicle. I can't see inside the front, so I don't know who's in there. So I was like, okay, well, this is it. Let's, all that special operations training, you think, okay, what am I going to do? I had a 9mm sidearm on me. There was no light on inside, so I pulled it out, just keep it in my lap, and he can't see inside. And he's yelling at me. He goes around the front. He's tapping on the front light, turn your headlights off and stuff. And he comes back to the window. So I'm like, hey, what do I have to do here? So I do what any well-trained special operations soldier would do. I say, I don't know what you're talking about. I hold my badge up. I'm an American soldier. I'm just going to the airport. I don't know what you're saying. And he's tapping on the window again. He's like, turn your light on. And so he's speaking English with an accent. And to me, I don't know what you're saying. I just keep holding my badge up. I don't know what you're saying. I'm an American soldier. I'm going to the airport. I'm taking a humanitarian to the airport. And the humanitarian leads over, like quietly says, I think he wants you to turn on the light. And so I turn, probably some curse words in it said, please shut up. And then I go back to the guy and he's yelling, pointing his AK-47. And I don't know if there's someone else in the Overwatch position or not, but I keep delaying until finally he's like, this fucking idiot's not going to, okay, it's starting to get daylight. He's like, go on. So we slowly start to proceed and drive through and then start racing once we get to the other side and make it to the airport. So I dropped her off at the airport. The humanitarian is pretty shook. I'm like, it's okay. You made it through. Everything's fine. I go back. I report to the Marine colonel that I was with. And I was like, hey, I got caught up in a legal checkpoint, but I negotiated through it. He's like, when you say you negotiated through it, how did you negotiate? I said, well, I just pretend like I didn't understand what's happening. I had my sidearm out, and I just pretend I didn't know what's happening. What he's saying the whole time. He's like, so you just act. Your special operations, Army special operations. So you just act confused. I was like, basically, yeah, that's what happened. I said, but I made it through it. So that's my illegal checkpoint story. All that training, all I did was just act confused, act like I don't understand what he's saying, and it worked.
Well, it seems like you kept it from escalating, and you got the humanitarian safe and got them where they needed to be.
Yeah, I accomplished the mission, but some unconventional means.
Well, I don't even know what you were supposed to done. Went out a blaze of glory.
Yeah.
I don't think that
was the other option, but who knows who was up in that truck? So.
Hey man, we would have been reading about you to this day.
Yeah.
I was like, I didn't know Dave's had it in him. But he had it in him. Don't mess with Dave's.
Yeah, I'd been on a one-way ticket out of the country at that point.
He probably would have got a different response from that Marine, because you say he was a Marine, wasn't he?
Yeah.
Of course, that's probably what he wanted to hear you did.
Yeah.
He probably wanted a Superman story at that point.
That'd been another one of those P&G stories. Sana non grata. You're kicked out of the country by the ambassador.
Oh yeah. Hey, go ahead, Big Pen.
No, I was gonna just tell him, hey, we appreciate him coming on the show, man.
Yeah, I really appreciate it. I think what you guys doing here is fantastic. I got into that a little bit. I mean, the stories that I've heard so far, and I'm going to listen more too. You're in competition with Joe Rogan podcast also, so but the stories I hear here, I mean, they're phenomenal. I love hearing the stories that you guys are doing. I think you're doing a great service for the overall veteran community. So I just hope you guys keep it up and keep getting the word out there.
Oh, absolutely. That's what we plan to do, man. Have because a lot of these they have, we have some, like Robert O'Neill and stuff on, but mainly we built this platform. We started with people who we knew. And that's, people we knew in the unit, everyday grind, come in here and they get out and they have problems transitioning. So we just want to give everybody a voice. Everyday heroes is what we call veterans. Come on here, tell their story, and others to hear their story, and it can resonate with them, and it may help them through problems that they're having in life also.
Yeah.
So
I know it's helped me seeing some of these other stories. Because again, we all have struggles, what they say in the Army, like every trauma is individual. So everybody has trauma in different areas and we're all recover from something.
Yeah.
So yeah, I really appreciate what you're doing. I have some great recommendations that I think are great I've got a military buddy that he's got a motion picture at the theaters right now that I think would be great to talk to. I've got I think me and John share a friendship with Dan, who was a civil affairs team leader with us, who now works, I think at Tesla, has been working there for years. I've got, there's some good recommendations I'll give you offline here that I think would be fantastic also to hear their stories.
We can appreciate that.
If you can, quickly, man, tell us about your podcast that you want to start.
Yeah.
So this came about probably, I don't know, 6 months ago or so. Again, with the remote job being isolated, and I really didn't do, I moved to a new location when I retired. So I really isolated myself some. I started coaching soccer for my son, which was phenomenal, but I really didn't plug in. And now I'm much more focused on getting plugged in. But so I'm always talking to my wife about stuff that I've learned with recovery from deployment injury recovery, from just regular injury recovery, I'm always up on like the current affairs, especially with Syria, after working Syria and Iraq and the Middle East and the PACOM environment. So I'm always talking to my wife about all of these, and she's like, well, why don't you just go do a podcast? Like tell like all the information you have, then you're not sharing it with anybody right now, so share it with somebody. So and like I said, so here today, I'm completely out of my comfort zone because I'm not comfortable talking about myself, and I don't know. Even in the military, that's probably was maybe one of the things I didn't overcome as much as I like talking about my peers, my subordinates, my unit, and other individuals. So I'm such a curious, I'm a lifelong learner and a curious person. So for me, that translates in I'm always curious about hearing about somebody else's story. So for me also, like getting to talk to, I have I think some interesting people like both of you, that friends that I know and other interesting people that I've run into along the way. So if I can share some of the recovery things that have helped with me in recovery, some of the things that have helped me in transition, and introduce people to some other stories that have helped them, then I think that's what my focus is going to be. That's what I'd like to do.
Sounds awesome, man.
Yeah.
Definitely. Well, you got anything before we get off here, John?
Oh, Michael Daves, the man with the smile. Hey, man, I appreciate you for coming on the show, brother, and just sharing your story and just being motivation and inspiration to our viewers. And we can't wait till you get that podcast up. Maybe we can do some partnerships over here with Swaggy Vets, and we can teach you everything that we know, and we can, build this network of veterans helping veterans together, or
That's
civilians,
awesome.
or civilians. Yeah. Whoever needs, we all need recovery at the end of the day.
Yeah, and you guys, hats off to you. You got such a professional podcast here. I know, looking at it and seeing these podcasts, like you guys are the real deal. So seeing what you guys are doing, it's awesome.
Thank you, brother. We'd love to have you part of it, man. As soon as you get locked in.
Yeah, I'm coming.
Hey.
All right. Let me see one of those events. I need to see you guys at one of these events.
Well, it's fun, man. We have a lot of fun, especially at the Tough Mudder. It was really cool.
This one is Atlanta Tough Mudder is coming up now. The next one, right?
Yeah, April 25th.
April 25th. Let me write that down.
Right. And we are gonna have our Swaggy Vet uniforms. That's gonna be out soon.
Where can I find those at?
Oh, they're gonna be online. But once you pay, then I'll be able to send. You're gonna go through Swaggy Vets to be able to attend, because we're trying to make it so the veterans it's free.
Mm-hmm. Okay.
Yeah, so you're gonna go through us, and then we're gonna go through a partnership with the Red, White, and Blue to try to ensure that the veterans that participate are free, and then we're gonna advertise the sale of the uniforms. Swaggy Vets, Tough Mudder shirt and shorts. What we did running last year, but we want to make sure we out there in uniformity and bring it in together as we help everyone along the Tough Mudder.
Okay, I'll be there. I'll see you there.
Absolutely.
All right, brother. Appreciate it.
It's gonna
be my ass to run, maybe.
And if you bring it in, we got it's one there for kids too beforehand.
Okay.
So it's another one there for kids, and then there's one for adults. But it could be, it's like teenagers be there doing people know they found them. I think Penn's kids came out last time, right? Your son?
Yeah, my son actually ran with us. He ran with Cyrus, who was on the show, and then my daughter and my wife was there. They were in the back. They were kind of chilling. They were kind of helping out, but they didn't do any event though.
I'll bring my son. I've got a teenage son.
Definitely do it. Definitely do it, Mike, because we buy Airbnbs. So we can get the family you know, the whole family thing going. We really not trying to do hotels or nothing, but you have that option too. But Swaggy Vets do buy Airbnbs, and so we can, you know, all co-locate and drive in together.
Let's get something here in Tampa. We're waiting on you here.
Oh, that'll work. That's something we make a look at
Let's
throwing
make
on the
that.
schedule. But you can help us out with it too.
I will.
Yeah.
I'll do whatever legwork you need done here. Let's get Tampa on the docket.
I mean that'd be awesome. We'll look
Yeah.
into it.
In September also, Mike, we'll be in Orlando. We partner with the Warrior Shield Foundation, and you're always welcome to come over there. They have a concert. You know, we have a motorcycle ride. It's a whole event. Tig Tigan from the Benghazi thing, he's there. We go to the range and do some shooting. So, and he was on the podcast, and we had Colonel Greg Gatson was on. He's there too. So it's a whole really cool thing, and so you're more than welcome to come to that too. Hang out with us. It'll be fun, man.
Yeah, sounds great.
You know, Orlando's just a hop and a skip for you.
Yeah, that's I-4.
Yeah.
Straight shot.
Mm-hmm. Well, if you got nothing else, guys, we appreciate you coming on, and appreciate y'all for tuning in. Till the next time, stay swaggy, stay strong, y'all. Peace.